And Charlie is an audit trainee working at MHA Carpenter Box, which is an accountancy firm based in the heart of Worthing. So Charlie, thank you very much for your time today. And it'll be great for the students to hear from you about what an audit trainee does and how you kind of got into your role. I can see, first of all, that I assume you're working from home.
Yes.
So you're having to adapt and work from home. How's that going?
Yeah, absolutely fine. I think it's been a bit of a transition, moving from the office to, being in the house. Wi-Fi issues, notably, you haven't got the facilities that you do at work. But I think it's been a good opportunity to be, in a completely different work environment and to be able to focus. It's sometimes better, sometimes worse. I look forward to going back to work. I think a lot of people will be. It's you miss the interaction with your colleagues, which you don't quite get over video calls, video chats. So there's some things better, some things worse.
Absolutely. And for our students watching this, not just from Shoreham, but students across the area, they've been in exactly this situation themselves, trying to learn from home, having been used to always being in a classroom and talking to each other and engaging with each other and talking directly to the teacher. Suddenly they've lost that ability to do that. So these videos are so helpful to give them a bit of an idea of what you do. So first of all, can I ask you, Charlie, what is an audit trainee and what's a typical day like in your job?
So to be an auditor, just in general, is to be an individual that takes the financial information from a company and puts it into a set of financial statements. Our role is to ensure that information is true and fair. And by doing that, we will complete detailed testing into the numbers to ensure that the income's correctly stated, that expenditure does exist. And it's used for shareholders, for external parties such as banks, to be able to trust the financial information that you can find on the internet, such as on Companies House. Part of my day-to-day role, it's extremely analytical. Being creative, I think, is one of the a big part of being an auditor. You need to be able to manipulate information, and from not working in an industry, being able to go in, understand how the client system works and what should be what should be taking place, and then making sure that is I think it's the best way.
So in your job, you have to go in and meet your clients as well. You go into client offices and you're not just in front of the computer all the time.
Absolutely. So it's a big part of our job role, is to be able to interact with clients, to go to their offices and spend, whether it be a week or two out there, obtaining the information you need from them. So the obviously paper copies that they might have, but also to get an understanding of the client, to assess trustworthiness, to understand what they do in a day-to-day role. And sometimes you don't get that from being at a desk. It's really useful to go in and see how everything works in person.
That's great. So actually that probably leads really nicely to my next question, which is the skills that you use. So at Shoreham Academy, we encourage our young people to develop their soft skills, because you can learn a job, you can go and, as you are a trainee at the moment, so you can go and learn how to do a skill. But what we're trying to encourage is that development of their soft skills. So having a look at that list, which three did you pick as the top skills for you in your job, and why, Charlie?
So I think the three skills that I use on a day-to-day basis to enable me to progress in my professional career would be to enable yourself to work as part of a team. So teamwork. To stay positive, and to be able to talk. And if I were to break those down, so I think a huge part of being an auditor is that you do go out in groups and assessed. So it's really important that when you have a time schedule and you've only got a week or two out, out at the clients, that you all cover the separate areas, that you feed back to each other if you're struggling, or if there's something that concerns you, and then you can speak to the more senior members of staff. So it's really important. Looking looking at staying positive, I've got a really good example of this being my own career. So was kind of it was somebody that I knew worked there whilst I was at college, and I thought that it seemed a really good place to work. So coming out of college, I applied, I had an interview, and unfortunately I didn't get the job. So rather than being down about it, I took myself off for a couple of years. I worked in an accounts office, just gained the relevant skills and knowledge and soft skills as well. So developed my communication in a professional environment. All you can do is develop yourself personally, and if that means to take yourself away and to improve, if you study elsewhere or whatever you choose to do.
I just wanted to reiterate what you were saying, Charlie, about how if you go for an interview and it doesn't work out, go and get more experience. If that's the job you really want to do, go and get more experience and then try again. Very, very good advice for everybody. That is, be resilient, and that comes back to staying positive as a skill, doesn't it?
Yes. Absolutely.
On the positive side. Excellent.
Yeah, it doesn't always go your way, especially in a professional capacity. So quite often you make mistakes, but providing you learn from them, I think that's it's just a really important thing to be mentally resilient, as you say. It is so important.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And pretty much everybody I speak to, and I've done a lot of interviews in the last couple of weeks, has said the same. If you've got a mental attitude, you can deal with almost anything.
It's really important that you might get criticism from a manager, or you might make mistakes, and that you just bounce back from that and you learn from it, because it's not easy.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. And so you're clearly relatively young, Charlie.
Yes.
Can you tell us, you were talking to me offline about you went to school locally and you went to college locally, did you? What did you study?
So I studied maths, economics and English at Basvic, so Brighton and Hove sixth form college. I decided to take those subjects just to keep my options open. So I understand I was, and there's a lot of young individuals will be, uncertain of what they would like to do when they're older. After discussions with family and friends, I decided that maths, economics, English it enabled me to have a really broad possibilities coming out of college. So yeah, I decided to take those. I wanted to take accounting, however, again, that just narrows things down. So if I could give any advice to anybody, is keep your options open unless you're absolutely certain what you want to do, because things change, situations change when you come out of college. You might get a job in an accountancy and realise that it isn't for you. So yeah, it worked out nicely for me, but just in hindsight, I think people really need to appreciate, do I want to do this for the rest of my life? And if I do, fine. If not, just tailor your subjects accordingly. I just think that, I didn't consider it so much, but if you have the opportunity to, or you aren't at college.
Yeah, no, that's valuable advice. But then English, maths and economics they're great subjects to lead you in lots of different directions, aren't they?
Absolutely. So I always, growing up, thought perhaps I'd like to work in London. But then as I've got older, and I've got, you go there with family and friends and you realise, would I want to have that rat race as such? And I didn't think, that isn't really for me. So, living down here and working locally is actually what I would like to do.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for a good work-life balance, isn't there? And we do live in a lovely part of the world by the sea, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have a seafront, which a lot of people don't. So,
definitely make the most of it.
Appreciate.
Yeah, fantastic. So
yeah, and I really think people should appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Charlie, we've got lots of young people sort of finishing their education who may not be choosing to go to university, and they're sat at home, and in lots of cases they can't really go anywhere. employers aren't recruiting very much at the moment, or as much as they were. What can they be doing while they are at home, that especially if they're interested in accountancy? Is there anything you'd suggest or any advice you'd give them?
First and foremost, I think LinkedIn would be a really good start. So it's used in a professional capacity, but you don't need to. You can just create an account and follow professors or, you know, icons in the financial services world, or whoever you want to, and they will obviously post relevant information, you know, tailoring of course to what you'd like to do. There can be some really you know, useful bits of knowledge on there, and even jobs, if that is something that you want to do. There is a jobs what's best to put it, module, let's say, on LinkedIn, where you can search, as opposed to Reed and Indeed and you know, some of the other job providers. You know, you can specifically target smaller, perhaps better employers. Social media, I think, again, similarly to LinkedIn, you could just, there's an abundance of information that you can get from those kind of sites. Excellent.
That's really, and we're encouraging all the students to create a LinkedIn profile.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
While they're doing this, so that they can think about their professional persona, if you like. And what they follow. Can you just very, very quickly explain to us the organisation that you're doing your qualification through, if they want to do a bit of research?
So I am training to be a certified chartered accountant, and that's ACCA. It's effectively an accounting body registered by the ICAEW, Institute of Chartered Accountancy, England and Wales. Yes, if you want to look into it, there's the ACCA website. It breaks down the courses, what you need to do, and there's a really useful website which is free to use, which might be really useful for you guys, is Open Tuition. So although the information, obviously it's free to use, so it's not always updated, but the foundation and the core knowledge that you can get on there is really useful towards studying for your professional exams. So
that's really helpful, because everybody's got a computer. Well, most people have got a computer or some way of getting onto the internet. So no, that's really valuable, Charlie. Thank you so much for your time, and I know you're really busy, and actually financial services is always going to be a busy industry, isn't it? So for those young people who may be thinking, where do I need to go, that where I know there's always going to be security and jobs, that's an industry sector to definitely consider.
Absolutely. I'd recommend audit to anybody, because that will never go. Of course, it's a subjective, the best way to put it is, you know, it's very opinion based, the work that we do, and systems in the future won't ever be able to replicate that. So especially looking in the audit sector, I think I would recommend that to anybody, because it's got longevity, and it's really useful because you develop understanding of the work that people do, as opposed to just taking something and manipulating it into records that people can use. You need to have an understanding, and you need to actually do their job for them to a degree, and ensure that they're doing it correctly. So it's a really good employability side of things is really good, because if you're an audit trainee and you qualify as an auditor, you've just got that element of understanding that perhaps other accountants won't have. Sounds boring, but it's really interesting.
I think it sounds very interesting. I think it sounds very interesting, actually, because it's very varied and you've got to learn about the different businesses. So it's really good advice, Charlie. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm interviewing Charlie at the end of a Friday, so we're probably both sounding a little bit tired after a long and busy week. So